The theatrical world is rife with superstitions. Things such as wishing a cast good luck, whistling backstage, and saying Macbeth's name on stage are considered bad luck. The ancient origins of drama might explain the link between the theater and the supernatural. Western drama originated in ancient Greece as a collective activity, a ritual enactment of death and rebirth. It was a way to celebrate the cycles of life and nature. Drama, therefore, began as a sacred activity, a way to worship the gods, especially Dionysus and Persephone. Even in modern times, there's still something magical about the nature of performances. Think about it, you could see the same production of a play repeatedly, yet it would never look the same. In the same way, there's something mystic about the transformation that actors undergo on stage. Marvin Carson, a theater professor, states, "When you take on a character, you're doing something dangerous. You're in some way playing with your essence or your soul." In his book, The Haunted Stage, The Theater as Memory Machine, Carson argues that plays are like ghosts. By reenacting old plays, the actors are haunted by the reception, history, and past performances of those plays. The way our consciousness interacts with art is by recalling memories related to the artistic objects we behold. What distinguishes drama from other genres is a sense of déjà vu. Carson calls this phenomenon ghosting. Ghosting presents the identical thing people have encountered before, although now in a somewhat different context. According to Carson, this phenomenon is very present in Macbeth, perhaps due to its popularity or age. In other words, whenever we hear the name Macbeth, we cannot separate it from its infamous history. Personally, I believe that due to the many paranormal elements that the play contains and the creepy history behind them, the play has become superstitious material. Macbeth is like a haunted house. Ancient, full of ghosts, and whenever someone inhabits it, terrible things occur. So now let's see why people believe that the play is haunted. The Tragedy of Macbeth is a play by William Shakespeare. The play is also known as the Scottish play, a title that most people prefer over the original. The reason for this is that people believe that if you say the name Macbeth while involved in a production or reading of the play, tragedy will befall you. There are countless anecdotes and horror stories related to the play. Nowadays, some stage managers even refuse to write the name of Macbeth in their scripts. They rather call the main characters by their title names. For instance, instead of using Lady Macbeth, they use Lady Glamis. Macbeth was first performed during the reign of King James I. The play narrates a story of treason, usurpation, and witchcraft. During the first act, our protagonist, Macbeth, encounters three witches known as the Weird Sisters. They prophesy that Macbeth will become king. Lady Macbeth, his wife, is in line with the witch's prophecy and pushes her husband to kill the king and take his throne. Of course, because this is a tragedy, nothing goes well and everyone ends up dead. Since James I was from Scotland, people believe that Shakespeare wrote this play to please the king. So the play emphasizes the importance of succession, which is often read as a critique to Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth was known as the Virgin Queen because she refused to marry and could not provide an heir to the throne. Other themes of the play also reflect social anxieties about female sexuality and maternity. And the conclusion of the play celebrates the re-establishment of the patrilineal and patriarchal line. Again, all these elements are read as critiques to Elizabeth's reign and show the social ease of having a male monarch back on the throne. Although I agree with the general idea that Shakespeare wrote the play to please James I, I think there is something much more darker about Shakespeare's reasons for writing the play. To me, Shakespeare was not only trying to please James with the political ideas that the play promotes, he was trying to please James I's morbid side. Both James and his family were deeply involved in the witch hunts. Everything began in 1537, when James I's grandfather, James V of Scotland, accused Janet Douglas, Lady Glamis, of witchcraft, and she was burned at the stake. Witnesses of Lady Glamis's death describe her as a woman with a manlike courage, because she died suffering awe. If the title of Janet Douglas sounds familiar, that's because Lady Glamis is the former title of Lady Macbeth. The title and manliness are not the only things that Lady Macbeth and Lady Glamis had in common. Lady Glamis was also involved in a treasonable conspiration to murder the king. It is impossible to say whether Shakespeare took some inspiration from James V and Lady Glamis' story, although he was a great historical researcher, so I wouldn't put it past him. James V's mother, Mary Queen of Scots, was also involved in the witch hunts. In 1563, a specific statute banning witchcraft was introduced by Mary Queen of Scots. The Stuarts' history with witchcraft might have fomented James's fears against witches. James was well known for micromanaging tortures and going on expeditions to learn more about witches. In 1591, James's obsession peaked after supervising the trial and torture of the notorious Norberwick witches. While being tortured, one of the women confessed to having caused a storm to sink James's ship. In 1589, James married Anne of Denmark, but she was prevented from joining James in Scotland because a storm drove her ship out of course. James decided to fetch his bride. Upon their return from Scandinavia to Scotland, their ship was battered by several storms. According to the National Library of Scotland, it was suggested that dark arts were being used by his enemies to prevent him from returning safely to Scotland. This was alleged work of the Norberwick witches, who confessed after torture to acting with the devil against James. Agnes Sampson was one of those accused of trying to kill James using witchcraft. During her confession, she claimed that she attached parts of a corpse to a cat, sailed to the sea in a sieve, then put the cat into the sea to create a storm to shipwreck the king. This event resonates with one of the scenes from Macbeth. In Act 1, Scene 3, the Weir sisters plan to punish a sailor's wife by conjuring a storm to sink her husband's ship. Though his bark cannot be lost, yet it shall be tempest-tossed. Not content with participating in trials and tortures, James I begins to write a book endorsing the ideas of the Malleus Maleficarum, also known as the Hammer of Witches. For those who don't know, the Malleus Maleficarum was a book written in the 15th century. It cemented the folkloric beliefs that witches existed, fomenting the hysteria surrounding the topic. The book follows the biblical precept, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live," and it shows how to identify and destroy witches. The book became the Witch Hunter Instruction Guide. Inspired by the Malleus Maleficarum, King James I wrote a book called News from Scotland and Demonology. Demonology was intended to convince skeptics of the reality of witchcraft. Written in the form of a dialogue, it sets out an argument demonstrating that the existence of witches can be proven, and urges their detection and punishment. The thought that a woman could endanger James's life without even touching him must have frightened James, especially because he thought that kings are justly called gods. The implications of this are that women could not only threaten the highest authority in the kingdom, but they could also undermine the power of God. As Howell V. Calhoun suggests, Shakespeare's use of many elements of Scottish and continental witch lore in Macbeth may be attributed to no other influence than that exercised by King James's News from Scotland and Demonology. In this light, it makes sense for Macbeth to end with the re-establishment of the patrilineal succession. The purpose of this could have been to appease James' concerns that his power could be threatened by the invisible forces that women could conjure up against him. One of the darkest elements of the play is that it conveys the fears that women incited in the superstitious and misogynist 16th century society. It is no wonder that in a world where a woman's role was to procure successors, those who could not do it became witches. According to Robert Fest, the story goes that the spells that Will included in Macbeth were lifted from an authentic black magic ritual, and that their public display did not please the folks for whom these incantations were sacred. Therefore, they retaliated with a curse on the show and all its productions. Although this seems to be a plausible paranormal explanation for the curse, we must remember that witchcraft was not really a thing in the Renaissance. It was more of a fantasy and an excuse to persecute men and women either because you didn't like them or because you wanted to steal their possessions. Of course, there are always going to be people interested in the dark arts, but considering the political and religious context of the 16th century, I doubt that the few witchcraft practitioners that might have existed would have been willing to share their knowledge with a poet. And I certainly doubt that there were witchcraft books floating around in libraries. I also cannot help but notice how much attention is given to the witches while people overlook the character with the creepiest lines in the play. Yes, I'm talking about Lady Macbeth. Written at a time when women's control over the reproductive function of their bodies was condemned as witchcraft, Macbeth conveys 16th century notions of femininity. The characterization of Lady Macbeth reflects social anxieties about female sexuality and the disorder that men thought women who were in control of their body could cause. For example, Lady Macbeth rejects her maternal side using vocabulary associated with witchcraft imagery. The raven himself is horse that crooks the fatal entrance of Duncan under my battlements. As you have seen, Lady Macbeth expresses her desires through portentous words. The raven, a symbol of witchcraft and the supernatural, also becomes a symbol of her victory. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here, and fill me from the crown to the toe top full of direst cruelty. Make thick my blood, stop up the access and passage to remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. Come to my women's breasts and take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. Come, thick night, and part in the dawnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold. She also makes a triple invocation, summoning spirits, murdering ministers, and the thick night. She wants them to unsex her so she can stop having female emotions. She asks them to suckle at her breasts and take her milk for gall, thus evoking the image of a witch who nurses her familia. Lady Macbeth's invocation suggests that she is willing to sacrifice her nurturing side to achieve her plans. Therefore, she rejects the side of her femininity related to motherhood and creation, aligning herself with the witch's destructive power. She cannot allow the compunctious visitings of nature to shake her fell purpose. In other words, she wants to stop menstruating to prevent the motherly compassion that a woman is supposed to feel during her courses from hindering her plans. The references to infanticide also link Lady Macbeth to the witches. In Act 1, Scene 7, she fantasizes about killing a child, and later in the play, the witches boil the finger of a birth-strangled babe. Symbolically, Lady Macbeth is sacrificing her fertility in exchange for power. I have given suck, and now how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this. The story implies that the power that women can attain by rejecting the reproductive function of their sexuality is dangerous and dark. Lady Macbeth does not want to rule conventionally. She doesn't want to be a mother of kings. She wants to be a queen. To her, motherhood is a weakness that has no place with the male quality she seeks to possess. She thinks that her husband is too full of the milk of human kindness. And her husband, Macbeth, compares pity to a naked newborn babe. While Macbeth will nourish his pity and fail, Lady Macbeth will pluck the nipple from his boneless guns to succeed. What's more, the fact that the Macbeths have no children but a fruitless crown suggests that Lady Macbeth is barren, since a woman's duty was to give birth to her husband's heirs, and the inability to do so was considered her fault. Being infertile was often seen as a reproductive crime. Federici argues that the witch hunt demonized any form of birth control and non-procreative sexuality, while charging women with sacrificing children to the devil. Even Anne Boleyn's failure to produce a living male heir led to her conviction and execution under the charges of adultery and witchcraft. That is to say that Lady Macbeth's potential infertility and the fact that she doesn't seek to conquer through progeny are part of her witch characteristics. By rejecting the reproductive function of her sexuality and embracing her desires, Lady Macbeth transgresses social boundaries. The play's ultimate message is that if the order of the kingdom relies on succession, then the female body and the body of the state must be controlled by men. As you can see, this play is a product of a very dark historical context. It supposedly uses real spells, is inspired by a book that taught inquisitors how to torture people, and it portrays witchcraft with very dark things such as infanticide. So no wonder why people think it is haunted. But now let's see the history of the production of the play. Actors believe you should never say the name Macbeth on stage because the play is linked to a series of accidents and deaths. Macbeth claimed its first victim during its opening day on August 7, 1606. Rumor has it that Hall Berridge, the actor who was to play Lady Macbeth, was stricken with a sudden fever and died. In 1672, an actor playing Macbeth's role used a real dagger in the scene where Macbeth is supposed to stab Duncan. The man ended up killing the other actor. In 73, the play was performed in London, and on the day the production opened, England was hit with one of the most violent storms in its history. In 1721, a nobleman interrupted a performance of the play, and the actors confronted him by drawing their swords. The men returned with the militia and they burned the theatre down. On May 10, 1849, Macbeth was being performed in the Astor Opera House when a crowd of 10,000 New Yorkers gathered to protest the appearance of a British actor who had got into a feud with an American actor. These two actors were the most popular actors of their time, and they were competing against each other because, there has always been a competition between England and America, especially back in the days. The militia had to intervene and 20 people were killed, 36 were wounded, and hundreds were injured. On April 9, 1865, Abraham Lincoln decided to read Macbeth when he was on board the River Queen, and within a week he was murdered. There are countless similar occurrences related to the play. There are so many that I would not be able to talk about all of them. But here are some of the most recent ones. During the first modern dress production at the Royal Court Theatre in London in 1928, a large set fell, seriously injuring some cast members, and a fire broke out in the dress circle. One thing you will notice is that the play is now not only linked to death, there are recurring accidents, especially related to fires and parts of the set falling down. In the early 30s, theatrical grande dame Lillian Boyles took on the role of Lady Macbeth but died on the date of the final dress rehearsal. Her portrait was hung in the theatre, and sometime later, when another production of the play was having its opening, the portrait fell from the wall. I think one of the creepiest parts of the deaths related to the play is that many of those deaths have their own haunting stories. So as you can see here, people believe that the lady was killed because of the curse, but then she's haunting the theater. So I feel that that's very interesting. In 1937, a 30-year-old Laurence Olivier was rehearsing the play at the Old Vic when a 20-pound stage weight crashed down from the flies, missing him by inches. In addition, the director and the actress playing Lady Macbeth were involved in a car accident on the way to the theater, and the owner of the theater died of a heart attack during the dress rehearsal. So as you can see, only in this production of the play, there are 3 different accidents related to the curse. In 1942, a production headed by John Gielgud suffered 3 deaths in the cast: the actor playing Duncan and 2 of the actresses playing the Weird Sisters, and the suicide of the costume and set designer. I think 3 deaths, it's insane, like for a single production. In 1947, actor Harold Norman was stabbed in the sword fight that ends the play and died as a result of his wounds. His ghost is said to haunt the Coliseum Theatre in Old End, where the fatal blow was struck. Supposedly, his spirit appears on Thursdays, the day he was killed. So once again, there's another ghost story that originated with the curse of Macbeth. In 1953, Charlton Heston starred in an open-air production in Bermuda. On opening night, when the soldiers storming Macbeth's castle were to burn into the ground on stage, the wind blew the smoke and flames into the audience, which ran away. Heston himself suffered severe burns in his groin and leg area from ties that were accidentally soaked in kerosene. So again, this is another fire that happened or went out of control because of the curse. In a production in St. Paul, Minnesota, the actor playing Macbeth dropped dead of heart failure during the first scene of Act 3. Like, what? So another thing that is really strange to me is the number of deaths that occur during the day of the performance or during the performance. So here's one of the most famous and recent tragedies related to the curse. Do you remember last year's Academy Awards? That awkward moment when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock? Well, apparently Rock said the name Macbeth a few minutes before Will Smith slapped him. So Chris Rock addressed Denzel Washington, who appears in Joel Coen's film adaptation of the play, and said, "Macbeth, love it." So people believe that he too was a victim of the curse. As it happens with superstitions, the curse would not be a curse without a ritual to get rid of it. According to Robert Fest, if you do happen to speak the unspeakable title while in a theater, you are supposed to take immediate action to dispel the curse, lest it ruin whatever production is up or about to go up. The most familiar way is for the person who spoke the offending word to leave the room, turn around 3 times to the right, spit on the ground or over each shoulder, and then knock on the door of the room and ask for permission to re-enter it. Variations involve leaving the theater to perform the ritual and saying the foulest word you can think of before knocking and asking for permission to re-enter. Some say you can also vanish the evils brought on by the curse simply by yelling a stream of obscenities or mumbling the phrase "tries around the circle-bound evil sink into the ground." Or you can turn to Will himself for assistance and cleanse the air with a quotation from Hamlet. "Angels and ministers of grace, defend us." If we were to find a logical explanation for the curse of Macbeth, we could always recur to coincidence. The truth is that bad things happen. As someone who used to work in the theater industry, I know that theater productions can be quite chaotic. I have never worked in one where something bad hasn't happened. That being said, we can't ignore that our beliefs shape our experiences. And as Malvin Carson says, ancient plays come with a past that will shape their coming theatrical productions and the way we perceive them. We could even see it this way. Most people will refuse to buy a house or to live in a house where someone has committed a murder. Even those who are skeptics will refuse because the idea of living in a place where something so hideous has happened is revolting. One needs not to believe in the supernatural to be haunted by the past. This just shows how the past and the themes of Macbeth shape the way we react to the play. So that was it for today. I hope you have enjoyed this video essay. I know it's a weird essay, but I feel super fascinated by this topic, so I wanted to make a video about it. Please let me know in the comments what you think about the curse of Macbeth. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!